Hi, I'm Charlotte Colbert from 18 Van Askey Lane. Thornville, of course. I'm here to ask a question again about the Mingo Sewage project. I wondered if anyone had a chance to check into that. I was here last time. I'll be here every meeting till I get some answers. Anybody able to check into that project?
Well, I think at the last meeting, we told you what the process is. Just to recapitulate what we told you, you were here 2 weeks ago, approximately 2 weeks ago. There's never been a full design of the project. There never has been. Never. So, it's my understanding there's no design at all.
Not that I've seen.
What's that?
Not that I've seen, not complete.
So when people say that this thing was able to go off, it doesn't. You gotta go, as I said to you before, the first thing you have to do is you have to do an Act 537 plan. The Act 537 plan details what your options are and what the costs are going to be. And that has to be approved by DEP. And then after that process, then you have to go through a funding source. There are two funding sources. One is RUS and one is PennVest. So in order to do that, we have to, get funding from them to do design. We don't have.
Okay, sir, after this meeting, I was approached by two different people that told me, both told me and my husband, that we actually had a funding source of $500,000.
And that $500,000, I believe, was to do Senate engineers to do the Act 537 plan. That's all.
But it was not completed, or it wasn't started, or?
So the plan is like a book like this, and they go through every option, viable option or not viable option. So the grant went to them, and then I believe
That it
there
was
was
just
the
dropped?
township had Harshman add a last option that Senate, so then Senate got upset because they weren't getting the money released to them and believed that the plan was 85% their work with only one option added. So that money went from LSA to Senate to do that book of all the different things you could do in Mingo. And then very little was done, after that. There was a few things, but nothing. That's just design work.
That's not design work. That's just theory.
Theory is, theory. Engineering theory. Planning.
But in order to do a project, you have to have design. The engineer would have to go through and figure out which is the best way. If you got the funding to do design, you have to figure which is the best way to do sewage. That wasn't even breached by the 04.
Mingo.
So that $500,000 was just to pay an engineering firm to do an Act 537 plan, which is a book about this thick, which is theory about what to do with the sewage and how to handle sewage. That's all it is.
The topography of land.
Is that DJ?
As I understand it, there were two grants from LSA. The first was in the approximate amount of $300,000, and that paid for the 537 planning process.
Okay.
They also received a second grant, it's my understanding, in the approximate amount of $500,000 from LSA towards the project. The total capital cost was approximately $1.3 million in that neighborhood. I don't have the numbers.
Is that hard and soft cost?
Because Senegal Alrima Road is 1.6 with no treatment.
Both of those grants were received before they had completed the 537 process. And the reason that we know that is because in the 537 plan, when they break down estimated monthly cost per user, the estimated monthly cost per user reflects having $500,000 in grant money towards paying the capital and project costs. It also planned for collecting sewage tap-in fees in the amount of $400,000 per connection, $4,000 per connection. And after all of this was done, after the grant money and the tap-in fees, the estimated monthly user cost was still going to be $125 per user per month.
And from my experience, and maybe from your experience, that's considered to be too high.
So that 530.
That was even a cost pre-COVID cost.
And that was, when was
that
this
was in 2019.
You.
125 a month, that's prohibitive?
That's what PennVest says at times.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, PennVest goes through and they analyze it to see whether they'll give money. If it gets to a certain part, if it gets to such a monthly user rate so high, they won't fund the project.
As I understand the status of where things were left, the planning process was complete, they moved into the design. I'm not sure they ever finished the design. I've not seen anything resembling a design for the sewage treatment plant which was proposed there. And to Dennis's point, once you have completed the planning process, you then move into obtaining your permits, completing your design, and then at that point, once your design is complete and you have your permits in hand, you can then approach the funding agencies for a funding offer, which I don't believe that ever happened because they never obtained the necessary 2 permits that were required to do a project of that magnitude.
Okay, so is there any way they can pick up at that certain point, or is everything just dropped? I mean, can they start from that point? I mean, what I'm saying is like, is that everything wasted from that point?
Well, there's a concern, and we have Mr. Cassidy here today. Mr. Cassidy is he's a representative of the Washington County Sewage Council. And he can tell you that we have concerns that some of the testing that was provided to DEP may not be accurate. Because some of the lots that were tested, according to that previous plan, say that those lots were defective in terms of sewage functioning. Mr. Cassidy and his firm went up there, and some of those lots that were supposedly malfunctioning appear to be functioning. Am I right, Mr. Cassidy?
Correct. Passing a dye test, I believe.
It passed the dye test.
Well,
I'm just telling you what we have.
Then there was a considerable amount of grinder pumps in that.
And you don't want grinder pumps in the system. The more grinder pumps you have, the more
Considerable,
cost.
considerable amount.
One step that was taken by our office earlier this year, we reviewed the 537 plan which was prepared. We updated the cost to the modern day, and we prepared an estimated monthly user cost based on the changes in economic climate that have taken place from 2019 to 2024.
So what is that cost right now?
Potentially up to as much as $300 per connection per month.
And what's the tapping fee? Still 4,000?
I believe so, yeah.
See, when you
I don't have all that
when
in
you
front
have
of
sewage, the sewage user rates it has 2 components, okay?
I understand,
Debt
tap
service?
in plus
No,
the
no, no.
monthly fee.
But,
Debt service and then usage.
You have a user rate. Your user rate has 2 components. Debt service, which is what you use to pay off the loan, the individual owner, and it also has basically O&M, which is operation and maintenance. So that's the reason why that cost, and again, it could go down, it could go higher, because it all depends upon the funding you get. And PennVest, it used to be, in the old days, you get a lot of PennVest grants, but they've cut back on that. And RUS, was it 50% they'll grant in terms of funding? So, right now, I'd like to say, we'll get it done, but we don't know yet because it's the circumstance.
Okay, well, here's the issue that the neighbors and I have. There's some properties that have been sold lately.
Up
Each-
there,
Yes, each
Okay.
property has had to put in a 30,000 plus sand mound because they don't pass the perk test. That's a lot of money. I'd rather invest my 20,000 into a sewage system or 30,000. There you
but
go.
some people don't have 30,000 to do that.
Well, okay,
Well,
but what I'm saying is, if somebody wants to sell their house, they're not gonna be able to if they don't pass the perk test.
RC, was there any people up there doing, is she correct about these dye tests and all that? These
Yes,
sand
I
mines?
know that's
I would-
true.
You mean in cost?
Yeah, she's saying it's based up in Mingo Circle area.
Okay.
I-
I don't remember too much about that map that I had drawn up.
Sure.
I will say that, you're right, a typical system will cost you between $25,000 and $40,000.
Yes,
Our office is concerned because if sewage is coming and it's a malfunctioning system, we hate to see the people put that money out to know that public sewage is coming.
Yeah.
But then we're bound by DEP of how long we can let that happen. And
Okay.
usually if it's within a year, they'll let us slide, and that's with the project,
In process.
correct?
Okay, now I know for a fact, my daughter lived not in Washington, was it still Washington? It was Washington County, but not where we live now. She was selling her house. A month or two before it was sold, they did a dye test, it did not pass. She had to use all the money that she was going to make on the sale of her house to put in a sand mound, and it cost her $35,000, okay? What a shame, but that's what she had to do. Now, the property she owns, which is close to us, which she would be on this Mingo Circle Sewage Project, she owns 2 properties, one next to each other. The second property, which she doesn't live on, they did a dye test on, it failed. She can never sell that property unless she gets sewage or she does another,
She could put a holding tank in, but here again, a holding tank is not the answer because, as you well know, a holding tank, it's gonna cost you anywhere from 13 to 17,000 to put one in. Having to have it pumped depending on how many people are in the house, every week and a half to month, at $400 of pumping, it adds up.
that's what I mean though. So there's a lot of people in this same situation, like, we have not had one done. I don't wanna get one done, I'm afraid. If I get one done and it says, uh-oh, you failed, we could never sell our house. Now, we're not planning on selling our house, we're gonna live there probably till we die, but whoever inherits this, or if my daughter should inherit it and wants to sell it, she won't be able to sell unless she puts in that kind
Well,
of
you could
thing.
sell, but it's a holding tank brings the value down.
That's not feasible.
That's why holding tanks are.
That's not feasible.
You know,
So we don't deserve sewage.
summarize that Mingo Circle,
We do,
the
we need
bylaws,
to,
put
we
it in
need
a
to,
place
we need to,
that normal people can read it and understand what the status is,
where,
the
where it's
history of
at.
it, and where we're gonna go. All
Yeah.
this act stuff, I read every document there was about this Mingo Circle. It's confusing, because there's no historical trend as where the disaster was back with the $500,000 we wasted, okay?
Not to
previous
mention the
board.
380,000 for
Whatever the
Hirschman
number is,
to
it's
redesign
a lot of
out
money.
the general fund.
Put it in something everybody else can sit down there and understand what the hell you're saying.
And we wanna know, why don't we
And the-
deserve it?
Nobody
I
said
agree
that.
with you.
So,
But you may deserve, but the question is the financial feasibility of the project. That's the question we have to ask.
it's like getting a business loan, they wanna prove that the business can pay back the loan, so like, when you go to Penvest, they wanna make sure that the
I agree.
people can afford to pay for
I
that.
know what you're
Yeah.
saying, but
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out how to design it, and we haven't stopped with even the grants, trying to
Right.
get grants for that, it's just, they're not coming in,
Plus the consent order.
the consent order.
We
well,
need to-
what can
There was
we
someone on
do
Philly
to
Hall.
help you? Is there anything we can do?
I don't know of anything to do, but right now, we are before DEP, we have some issues, but just to give you some idea, what would the design, if for instance, how long would it take to design the system? How many months?
We can't figure out where Finleyville Alrema Road skipped in front of it. Like, we can't figure out, like, it wasn't even on
Yeah.
the radar.
That's what
And
I
now here
don't
we're-
understand.
We're bound by a court order to finish Finleyville Alrema Road. But we don't know how it got there. We don't know how, I can see in the history, just like you, that Mingo Circle was the priority, and then somehow it got switched. But that was before all of us. We don't know why that happened, but now somehow Judge Lucas has bound Union Township and Peters Creek Sanitary to finish that project, which took all of this township's ARPA money back in 2022. So all of the Build Back, Build Better money is going to that project but we don't know why.
I mean,
We don't know why.
is there another way we can solicit funds
And there were people on Finleyville, Alrama Road that spent the 30,000, that don't even want storage, because they're like, I just spent all this money on a holding tank, I don't wanna tap in, I don't wanna pay for that too, I've got a perfectly good working system.
TJ, how long would it take to design a system? Just rough, yes,
Probably, I mean, starting from scratch, which we would be doing because
there's nothing there.
to the original point, I believe the township requested the files and none were provided.
Yes.
Starting from scratch to design a system like that, probably 9 months.
Well, and
And then you have a permit process
what's the
on top of
permitting
that.
take after that?
To get the permits, I mean, water quality management part 2 permit, our office got one in 2022 and it took 15 months.
Now, there was
How
some
many
issues,
months?
15,
That's in addition to 6 months, or 9 months.
that's after the design is completed, just the permit review period could be.
and there was some
15
issues with Roman Run, based on that, that's a pristine stream that.
They did grant us an MPDS permit for that, so I think if we met the, effluent limits, we probably could discharge there. I think that question's answered,
So we have 2 years for permitting and for design.
roughly. Yeah.
Financing would take how long?
Well, once you have your permits, you can go to financing, so
So we're talking about a period of
3
about
to
2
4
years.
months on top of that to close with Penda, roughly.
And what's it cost, what were the estimated costs for design rate?
Generally, I would say somewhere between 10 to 15% of the project cost, which I think we had in the neighborhood of 3.5 million. So.
How many bake sales would that be? That's what I wanna know.
I mean, I said, what's it, 28 customers, residents on the Alrama project. It was 1.2, 28 people to get storage, $1.2 million.
Yeah.
And so it's closer to $2 million now, for 28 homes to get storage.
And the reason I gave you that timeline is just to say, even if
And that
it's,
was without a
Yeah.
package plant involved.
that timeline he just gave is to give you an idea, it's not gonna happen overnight. It'll take
Well, I
time.
understand that, but I like to see movement. I wanna see, people are wondering like, this thing started so long ago, I've been saving money. People saying, I started a special bank account for this to start.
There was
Saving
a
money for it.
newsletter put out in 2020 that said you guys were gonna have storage in the spring of 21.
Yeah,
The
For-
spring of
Honestly.
21, you guys
Yeah.
are gonna have storage.
For the record, the consent order and agreement between Department of Environmental Protection and the township also incorporates an implementation schedule. And the implementation schedule said everything was going to be complete by October of 2023.
It wasn't, and it wasn't
It's-
close to
it's-
20. In October of 22,
It fell
There was no
behind
way that that could
implementation
happen.
schedule somewhere between 2021 and 2022 when the permit applications were not submitted when they said they would be reviewed and approved, and then funding could have been pursued.
Okay,
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanna keep this moving and,
yeah.
clear it up and cause, people ask and I told them I would come and, try to get some answers for them and I appreciate your
Sure.
help. Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.